And I really do appreciate that the Lord has given us another opportunity that we may be able to learn together. I'm waiting for you to settle down. There are people who have not settled. I can see that. Right. My name is Moses Muregi Mwangi. I come from Kerugoya. Kerugoya is in Kirinyaga County. That is where I work. And I thank God that I've been able to come here. I'm born again. I'm a father. And so many other things that we shall continue running and hearing so that we may be able to know each other. I have a very big or a very large amount of what we would want to run today, but because of time, it may be a little bit difficult to cover everything that I wanted to cover. But I am made aware by the parish minister that I'm dealing with those people who finished class 8. Am I right? Am I right? Yes. So he mentioned that to me, and so basically what I'm going to speak about rotates around that. First of all, I want to congratulate you for the great transition. Something remarkable has happened in your life. So for the first time, you are moving from primary school to secondary school. Number 2, another transition, I'm sure for the boys, they underwent physical circumcision, isn't it? Kwa nini mnacheka? Haikufanyika? Oh. Boys, mko wapi? Ilifanyika? Was there a physical cut? Aya. Yani girls are answering on behalf of the boys. There is a problem. Okay, I am saying I know that there is something remarkable that happened. Boys underwent physical initiation that is called circumcision. And I'm sure you were taken well through, health-wise and in terms of mentoring. And what we are doing here is just a continuation of what happened to you. Something that happened to the girls is that mentally they were prepared to become adults. So it is a transition. It is a stage from childhood to adulthood. Or that is how our culture was and has been, although a lot of what was being done has been watered down. However, it is a major transition. Spiritually, I am sure we have also moved from one level to the other. In my own eyes, I can discern that you are now in your adolescent. I mean, I can see that physical features are changing. Si ni kweli? So this is a stage of a very rapid change. That is physiologically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. So there are many things that are changing. And I hope that our caregivers will also be patient with you. Nasikia watu wameanza kusema zamani. Yes, our caretakers, that is our caregivers, our parents, our teachers, our elders, the coordinators, they will, of course, I can imagine they are trying to understand us, because it is at this stage where someone is asking themselves, who am I and what do I want to become? There is one psychologist, he's called Eric Erickson. He says that at this stage is where people now start having meaningful transition towards, in terms of emotionally becoming attached to others. And I say this, I know you have learned this in school, that yes, of course, the rapid change that is happening is not a problem, the problem is how you handle the stage. Sawa sawa. Na at the end of this lesson, kuna ile karatasi ambayo mtapewa na itaongea maneno kama hayo ambayo ninayo yasema. I'm a father of an adolescent, so at least I'm able to understand them a little bit. And I'm understanding them. I'll start by a story that maybe you have heard or maybe you have never heard. And sometimes it was a movie. I don't know whether it is still a movie right now. It was called Titanic. How many have ever watched Titanic? Good. I think I can identify with the people. I had never gotten interested in watching that video, which actually many people say that it fetched more money than the money that was used to build that ship many years back. Now, the story of Titanic, the name Titanic in itself means exemptional strength, size or power, gigantic, massive, terrific, monstrous. Yani nimekibia sana. Although unajua hii si part ya lesson, ni introduction tu, lakini vizuri hata kama utaandika that the word Titanic means of exceptional strength. Yani kitu ambayo iko na nguvu sana ambayo si ya kawaida. It is big in size. Titanic, big in size. Or power. Iko na nguvu sana kuliko vitu zingine hata kama ziko na nguvu. Exemptionary, great in size or power. Gigantic, that is a giant. I know they no longer tell stories about giants. We used to hear them when we were young. Titanic means giant or gigantic, something that is exemptionary big. If you remember that word in the book of Numbers chapter 13, the children of Israel saw giants and it changed their mind. So some of them became afraid, others were able to overcome. We may not go that direction. Titanic also means massive. It also means monstrous. Monstrous, you have, by the way, these days cartoons wanaletaga hizo monsters. I don't know whether they are real or not. But the monsters is something huge, something very big. So when we talk about Titanic, we are talking about of exceptional strength, size or power, gigantic, massive, terrific, or monstrous. Those are some of the descriptions that you can give. Now, why did they choose to give it the name Titanic? History tells us that the ship was created in 1912, and it costed more than $7 million at that time. So one of the reasons why it is called Titanic is that it spent the whole budget. $7 million, if you were to interpret it today, is quite a huge amount of money. It can carry almost the whole of our African economy. I mean, this ship was so big, it costed so much money, and it was the largest movable object ever made by human hands during that time. And actually, it was a cruise ship. When we talk about a cruise ship, is that we are talking about a very huge ship that has all the luxuries and all the things that you may need to be comfortable. And it was basic purpose for the Titanic was to make it a vocational ama kitu ambayo ingetumika kupeleka watu katika holiday. So the Titanic was built in that nature. I want to add a few things about it, then I move out of it. It was a luxurious ocean liner that carried the who of who in those times. It was so expensive, it was so great, it was so beautified that the who is who of those times. The billionaires, people who could be listed in the Forbes, were the ones that were carried by that ship at that time. It was thought to be unsinkable. That is, everybody thought this is the only ship that cannot be able to sink. In fact, those who created it said even God cannot sink it. They were so confident that the Titanic would never be able to sink. It had a tear weight of 46,328 tons. So you can imagine the displacement that ship was going to give. Tear weight, hakuna kitu imewekwa, ni body peke yake. Tear weight ni ile tunasemaga kama ni gari, weight yake kama haijabeba kitu. It was 46,328 tons. When fully laden, ukiweka mizigo, it was 52,000 tons. So, ikiwa imebeba mizigo na imekalia kwa maji. It was 26.9 meters long. Sasa mimi naona watu wataanza kupima. 26.9 meters long, 28.2 meters wide, and 11 stories high. So you can see what kind of a ship we are talking about. So large was that ship, so costly was that ship, so good was that ship at that time, and it had a capacity to carry a big number of people. Actually, that day, 1,500 people lost their lives when it sank, eventually because it sank. It was the fastest ship then. And the last thing, it was in the first maiden journey. It had never traveled again. And I want you to know that is the reason why I'm giving this story. Yet you have all the qualities and qualifications of that good young man who is transiting from primary school where there was not so much exposure, very handsome, nice girls, I can see them, and you are transiting. It is the first maiden journey to the next level of your life in education, and not only in education, socially, spiritually, you are going to get into a very new perspective. Now, there are a few coincidences that happened, and they were mistakes, and I want us to tackle them as I continue. That this ship, they kept on postponing its first maiden journey. For 3 weeks, they kept on saying, today is the time to start the journey. Tomorrow will be the time, the next day. So they postponed it for 3 weeks. You see, the class I'm talking with right now, they are supposed to be in second term, Form 1, isn't it? Yes. If I'm not wrong. But something just postponed. You are moved to the next level. Some of you who would not have attained 18 years by the time they are in Form 4 will be 19 or even 20. Something has just happened. But how are we going to handle this? We are going to get to that if time will allow me, because I realize I really had a lot of things to speak about. Something else, when it started traveling or sailing, this is what they say. If it had moved with a lesser speed of 1 mile per hour, if it had reduced its speed by only 1 mile per hour, the iceberg would have been in a different position. Unajua kile kiliagusha ni iceberg. So, kwa sababu ya speed yake, ilipima straight to the icebergs. So they say if it had moved with a lesser speed by only 1 mile per hour, people and lives would have been changed. You realize, and that is what Romans 8:28 says, that we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. You see, maybe the Lord is saving this generation from sinking by delaying them with a few months to where they should have been today. Then there was also something that was noticeable. The night when the Titanic hit the iceberg was moonless. It was a very dark night. There was nothing to show whether there was danger ahead of them. And in many times in our lives, especially young people, we realize that we may lack mentors. The last time I was here, I gave a story of the South African Zoo. Who can remember that? Hao walikuwa. And I said in that South African Zoo, there were young elephant bulls that were left in the zoo. And the scientists decided, okay, can we remove the fathers, the father bulls? Can we remove them and take them elsewhere and leave the young bulls here alone? And it happens that within 3 weeks, they had done so much destruction that the zoologists decided to ask themselves, what is happening? We thought we would leave them better, grazing, eating, and feeding themselves more better, but they have completely destroyed everything here. So they asked themselves, what can we do? They said, let's bring the bulls back, the fathers back, and see what will happen. And guess what? Within a week, everything had returned to normal. The moment you remove mentors in the lives of people, they are going to get into a shipwreck. Are you getting me? And I think what we have lacked currently in our lives are what we call mentors. We no longer have fathers, people who can guide young people, tell them, young people who are here, that there are some times our bodies are on fire. You see, the good thing, I'm talking to people who are already there. Am I right? Ama hakuna vitu physiological mmekuwa mkisikia? Kwani hao watu wa Nairobi wanakuwa namna gani na wakirugua wanasikiaga? Yaani kwa hiyo age yenu hakuna kitu mnasikia? That is why I didn't want to use the pulpit. Kwa sababu mimi sitaki waone kama ni church. Tulikuwa tunasoma. Kevo, next time bwana, niondolee pulpit ndio tuongee na wao sawa sawa. Lakini sawa for today. Yaani hao watu hakuna kitu wanasikiaga? Hakuna? No emotions, no what? We need mothers who are mentors to these young girls and tell them there are times when our bodies are on fire. Being on fire is not a problem. How to manage the fire is the issue. I mean, everybody got it. Even those people you have had in the Bible, even those people who are very successful, they passed through the stage that you are passing. But the good thing is that if you have mentors, they will tell you that this is the step. When the fire starts burning, what do? Haizimagu haraka hivyo, there are procedures ili ambazo mpaka ufundishwe how to extinguish the huku na kuaga na fire extinguisher. Munakuaga na fire extinguisher huku. Inakuaga imeandikwa instructions. This is what you are going to do to extinguish the So when they returned the bulls, we realized that the young elephants started behaving. We must return mentors to young people so the fire can stop burning. So that, because you know, young people have a lot of energy. If you tell them, ndio sababu nasikia wakiimba nyimbo zingine, tutarara huku. Yani they can dance the whole night. Na kesho bado wapate wakifanya kazi zingine. If you ask some of us, if we dance the whole night, the next day we shall be in hospital. Because age is actually catching with us. Are we together? But you will also get there, by the way. Your grandmother one day was your age mate. So let me say this. That night was moonless. There was no light to see the iceberg. In other words, when we don't have mentors to give us direction, we are likely to crash. We are likely to sink. And that is why we need mentors. And I thank God that this forum was made because it is one way of imparting mentorship. The night was windless, and the iceberg was blue. That's something else. That the night was very calm. Everything looked as if it was just normal. And even today in our lives, things just look normal. We party. We do all the things that we are doing. Things are just fine. In fact, were it not that Corona came and brought a lot of problems to us, we were just sailing in a weedless sea. It was just okay, everything was fine, until something came and changed us. There are a few lessons we can learn. I have written this note in a very disorganized way, so it may not be able to help you even if I left you with it. It is scrabbled, but maybe we shall talk with the parish minister who can write them down well and then produce a few copies for you. There are lessons that we learn. What was the mistake of the Titanic? One of it was that there were not enough lifeboats and life jackets supplied, because they say only half of the total crew had the life jackets. There were only 20 lifeboats against almost 3,000 people who had been carried. So these people forgot a very important thing, that when tragedy strikes, because tragedy can strike at any point, do we have measures? Do we have a way to rescue ourselves from there? I mean, I was doing some research, and it was a terrific research. It was saying that about 60% of young people in the church has in one way or another engaged in sex. Now, how many have heard that word, except for it meaning gender? Sex kama haijamaanisha gender, ni wangapi wameisikia? Yani huku hawasikiagi? Okay, kule Kirogoya wanaisikia. Lakini alikuwa wanasema hivi, in one way or another, young people at the age of between 10 and 25 have engaged in one way or another in sex. That's the research, it is not me. And I know it is not here, but this is what I said sometimes back. Na wamama wakiambiwa wasimame kanisa waibe nyimbo, unapata bado watu wameketi chini. Umenishika? Kwa sababu wakati mwingine wako na experience kubwa kuliko mama zao. And I know you get what I mean. So I'm saying this, that the reason why we are teaching you this is to help you to come out of the Titanic before it can sink. There must be enough lifeboats with us. There must be enough life jackets with us. And I tell you, because we are in the church, one of the biggest life jacket and life saver we have is the word of God. There are many people who are young in the Bible. Mention them. Joseph is one of them. He got in Egypt when he was only 17 years. Daniel is another one. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom we learned the other Sunday when we were here, that they said, we will not accept to defile ourselves. Enough life jackets. We have preachers with us here. We have trainers. We have people who can tell us the direction. They can mentor us. They are the lifeboats, and they are also the life jackets to help us to come out of the things that are happening. The reason why I suggested that the next time, if I will get a chance, I will not use the pulpit, because some of these things we don't speak them in the pulpit. But when I was thinking of what to talk about, and there was so much of it, I realized that when many young people get to secondary school, they get into addiction. And addiction is not necessarily chemical addiction. In fact, nowadays I don't talk about chemical addiction. I mean, people have been partying, alcohol, and all that kind of stuff. But guess what? Non-chemical addiction is the biggest problem that we are having today. They are not here, but in Kirogoya, there are many young people who engage in what we call masturbation. How many have ever heard of that word? Hamujawahi kuisikia? Okay, it's a vocabulary. Write it down. The other time I'll come, I'll speak about it. I mean, there are people who are hooked to that. And when they go to high school, they do nothing else. It is so disturbing that every time of their life, they can't do without it. How many of others who have heard about pornography? Oh, that kind of time when you just wake up, you did not have a problem. You wanted to do research on Titanic. And by mistake, unaona ile typo. Najua hapa labda haipatikanagi. Ulikuwa umetype ukitaka kutype T, S ikatokea, alafu ikajiandika sex. Alafu sasa ukasahau Titanic, ukaanza sasa party after party, party after party, party after party. Alafu bado zinaisha, unakopa. Zingine zinaisha, unaitisha boga point. Unaenda mpaka unasahau ni nini ulikuwa unafanya. The good thing is, the good thing is that they are not here. Hawako hapa, lakini Kirugoya na waonaga. Na kuna ingine inaitagwa gambling. All those are non-chemical addiction. Unfortunately, parents may never notice that their children are addicted. Sababu wao wanasemaga, siku hizi akimase amekuwa mzuri, anashidaga tu kwa kitanda amerara siku mzima. Si mase mwenye ako hapa, ako Kirugoya. Mimi sijaongea kuhusu, mimi unajua naishi mashambani. This is town. Kule ni shambani, Ziruro. Nasema, siku hizi. I had a case, by the way, I'm a counselor by profession. I had a case of a young man. 2 young men. Wazazi wao wamekuja kusema, mimi sielewi siku hizi. My son Peter and John wanashidaga tu kwa bedroom kutoka asubuhi mpaka jioni. Kamwambia wewe uko taabani. Unastahili kuingia mara moja tu, wakati mwingine impromptu. Alafu nawaambia lete simu nione, my son, what were you researching on? Ndio uone ni nini hao watu walikuwa wana. Yeah. Kumbe walikuwa hata hapa wako. Nilidhani hawako Kirugoya peke yake. So I'm saying this. Something else that made the Titanic ship to sink is that there was lack of training. What I'm doing right now is that I'm training you. The crew members, they were not fully trained. They were not fully trained on how to handle an emergency. The last time I was here, I talked about one of the most commonly abused drug. It is called the morning after pill or an emergency contraceptive. Now, the bad part of it is that an emergency contraceptive is only supposed to be used once per year. Lakini, unapata ya kwamba there are people who use it almost daily in their lives. The end result is that health-wise, they destroy themselves. Many years later in their lives, that's when they will realize the mess they put themselves in. So we must train you in the Word of God. We must also train you in how to live. We must train you in your social life. We must train you what to expect before you. Something else, number 3, there were no binoculars or searchlights. They didn't carry, they didn't bother. They were so confident. So they didn't carry binoculars. You know, binoculars inakusaidia uone bali kitu ambayo iko bali. You know, we are impacting this knowledge to you right now so that you will be able to see far. You see, a giraffe is able to see very far away. Lakini, hii ingine mpaka ualift ndio waweze kuona bali. The reason why we are imparting this knowledge today is to impact you with binoculars and searchlights so that you shall be able to see the dangers and obstacles ahead. Aya, kwani time itaisha na Titanic? They didn't have emergency backups. And there was no good communication with the other ship. What I mean is this. Emergency backup inakusaidia wakati if every other emergency has been distinguished, you can still have others that are going to send what we call the signals. Wanazitaga aje? The SOS. To send signal to others. there was not enough communication. So other ship that would have come to rescue this one were not in a position to do that because there was no good communication. In fact, they say this, that even when Titanic was in such a dire need of being rescued, the signals that it was sending were saying, I'm okay, I have no problem. That is the signal the SOS was sending. And even today, there are many young people who do not have emergency signals and communication. So unawapata wanaendelea kuingia kwa tabu because even wazazi wengi wamekuwa remote parents. They are not available. Wanafikiri wakipea young people pesa, hiyo imetosha. So signal hata wakisend signal wanaonekana wako okay. Wako okay until ile siku ambayo kutakuwa na shida mingi. Someone wants to give me some suggestion? Minaona wakiongea kwa hivyo nafikiri there is a point. We need to clarify? No, these two ladies. Okay. So let's go on. And I'll finish by this. About the Titanic, there is a very strong, many other things that we would have talked about, but I don't want it to water down all the other things that I want to speak. They were overconfident, which resorted to carelessness. Overconfidence that resorted to carelessness. So those are some of the things that were overlooked then, because the Titanic eventually sank. And when it is sunk down so many meters down the ocean, those people who found it many years later said it was like a whole street that was scattered in the sea. So many lives were lost just because people became overconfident and so they were careless. To the point that people just continued to drink, to eat, to do all manner of things, to enjoy themselves, even when the Titanic continued giving signals that there was danger, they didn't find it. We are all moving from one level to the next one. We have transited from being small girls and boys. We are graduating to become adults. As I said earlier, Erik Erikson and Sigmund Freud expect us that as we negotiate to the next level, when we are adults, we are expected to take over from the others who are already there. Are we together? So we want to have a commercial break. Na hiyo commercial break tutafanya kitu inaitagwa. You remember when we were very small. Na ninajua hii yenyewe, it was our time. Tulikuwa tunaiba kaibo kengine kanaitwa, hii tunaita appetizer. Nataka tuinuke juu zote na miguu yetu. Tuinuke, alafu tufanye ka appetizer kidogo ndio tuendelee. Tulikuwa tunaisema hivi kabla hamujaanza. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulder, knees and toes. Ear, eye, nose. Sawa, amkeni. Hiyo tufanye hiyo commercial break. Ndio tuendelee kwa hiyo ingine. Na kwanza tu stretch. Aya, simnabisa na young people. Sawa. Tuanze. Aya. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulder, knees and toes. Aya, tufanye haraka sasa. Ile tupeleka tape haraka. Head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulder, knees and toes. Angalia hawa wamepotea. Tuketi chini ndio tuweze kuendelea. So one of the things that I'm going to tackle, because it will be one of the challenges that we shall meet when we go to high school, or whenever we shall meet, is called boundaries. Iandike vizuri. Boundaries. So what is a boundary? Who knows what is a boundary? Mpaka. Good. Let me go fast because our time is running. A boundary is a dividing line showing limits. A boundary is a dividing line showing limits. Kwa hivyo ni kumaanisha kama kumewekwa boundary hapa, assuming this is the boundary, inakuonyesha you cannot go beyond this point. And boundaries have always been there. Unapata mahali kumeandikwa, especially town, usikojoe hapa. What are you supposed to do ukipata kitu kimeandikwa hivyo? Aya, mahali kwingine unapata kumeandikwa no admission, ama huwezi kupita hapo. Admission for, maybe kama ni kwa hoteli imeandikwa admission for staff only. What are you supposed to do when you get there? So boundaries are dividing lines showing limits. They helps one to define where one's responsibilities begin at the end. So inakuonyesha your responsibility starts here and ends. Okay, good. Nimeona wanafunzi wako. Boundaries, they help one to define where one's responsibilities begin at the end. Responsibilities zinaanza wapi zako, zinafika mpaka wapi. Hata kwenu nyumbani, kuna responsibilities zako mahali zimeanza na mahali zimefi. So when you were about 1 year old, ulikuwa na responsibilities ambazo haungefanya, ni kweli? Haugejichagulia utavaa nguo gani, haugejichagulia utakula chakula gani, haugejichagulia utarara wapi. And as you continue to grow, more responsibilities are assigned to you, but there are boundaries that are put there. So boundaries, when you go to high school, you will find many things. Of course, some that are good, others that are not good. And it is your responsibility, because you have been empowered, to know how far can I go. Let's say, for example, after this lesson that I'm teaching, you end up in a party. And then you realize that people who are in that party are taking alcohol, they are engaging themselves in orgies. Na wewe umefundishwa catechism, what are you supposed to do? Kujikaza. What are you supposed to, let me hear, isikue chorus. What are you supposed to do? Unajitoa. Haya tusikie kwa mwingine, what are you supposed to do? Unatoka. And you think it is easy like kutoka tu kwa madhiri. Hivyo. Remember, wenye walikupeleka huko ni marafiki zako, in quotes. Sini kuna peer pressure. Wako. Na unajua bado hata nao mwili yako inawaka. Kwa sababu iko hiyo stage ya kuwaka. What are you supposed to do? Now let me tell you the truth. This is what our brother in the Bible, Joseph, did. At that age, he decided to flee. And the Bible tells us that Paul tells Timothy the same thing, that free from your youthful passions. I tell you, sometimes the pressure is too big. You may not be able to come out unless you run away from it. The last time I was here, I talked about a skill called assertive training, but there is also another one called aversive. The difference between aversive and assertive is that in assertive, you are saying, no, I will not do this. But sometimes the pressure may be too big. You may not be able to say no. So what are you supposed to do? To evade. Si unajua kuna roadblock huwa zimewekwa, unaambiwa deviate. Uachane na main road, udeviate. So to avance ni kuondokea. Wakati mwingine when the pressure is too big, you need to deviate. Are you together? And I like the way some of you have said it. Our theme last time was that we must run away from those youthful passions. Now, without boundaries, we feel depleted. Without boundaries, tuko pamoja. Without boundaries, we feel depleted, taken advantage of, taken for granted, intruded upon. They may lead us to resentment. Sio kukosa boundaries. Inaweza kutuletea resentment, hurt, anger, burnout, name them. Ukikosa boundaries, utapata kuna mambo inafanyika. Let's say for example, you are going to school and you are a girl, a decent lady like I can see. Alafu unapata conductor ameanza anasema, ama hata si conductor, hata other bigger boys wamesema, akio nywele yako inakaa sawa. You know, at that point there is no problem. It's not wrong for people to admire you the way you are. Lakini the next move ndio inakuwa shida. Haki nasikia niko na hiyo temptation ya kuguza hiyo nywele. Sasa anaguza, anaanza kuteremuka. And I want to say this kama vile nasemaga Kirinyaga. Young ladies, you are not an avocado. Unajua avocado ndio kila mtu anaenda anatotia. Anyway, I want to know, imeiva. You must give yourself respect, value. Ama mnaonaje? By giving yourself value, you become a person of substance. Watu wakikuonea bali wanasema hapana, yule haguzagwi, anaonagwa tu. Unamuonea bali na binoculars, lakini hakuna kukaribi. Young men the same way. Unajua siku hizi young men have also gotten in a lot of trouble. Yesterday, okay, I said last time I'm an administrator, I will tell you what I do later on if you interact with me. And we were talking, young men, siku hizi wamejikosea heshima, wanatembea na watu wako age ya grandmother yao. Yani sasa kama yule jana nilikuwa nimepata, huyu grandmother, yani hata meno hana, there is nothing to enjoy, hakuna kitu, lakini unapata wanashida wamefuatana. Kirabu after hii wameingia hii ingine, wanatoka hii wanaingia hii ingine. And I was saying yesterday, generation inaenda kuisha because you are so hakuna kitu anaweza kuleta kwa hii dunia at this moment. Si ni kweli? Young men, you must also put value into your lives. Abia watu vizuri, waandikie kibao pale, waandikie vizuri useme no admission please, ama vitu ingine yenye utafute moto, something ambayo inaweza kukudefine you as a person. Add value to your life. Ukikosa kuwa na boundary, you feel hurt, kwa sababu utapata watu wamekufanya mambo ambayo haugetaka. Waambie vizuri, clearly define, hata kama ni your cousins. Waambie mwili yangu inakuwaga private and confidential. I'm not a stadium. Unajua kuna stadium zingine huwa hasifungwi. Watu wanaingia wakito. Hakunaga huku. Lakini unajua mimi ni mtu wa ushago. Huko kuna stadium zingine watu wanaingiaga wakitoka. You are not a stadium. Wewe unastahili kuwa mtu ambaye, si unaonaga kuna private residence zimeandikwa hapa hauwezi kuingia mpaka gatekeeper akukubalie. You give value. When you don't have a boundary, you will do all kind of things. There are things that are happening today in high school. The New Age movement of people who are called lesbians, gay, bisexual, whatever, transgender, and all that. And people are even looking for rights, and they are saying, okay, this is the way forward. So when you go to high school, you may have only heard that in the streets or in the papers or in the TVs, but you meet that there are people who are gay. What are you supposed to do? What will happen if your dorm mate is a gay? Alafu anaku-approach. Sema, mkitoka uko form 1 umeingia tu, unajua wewe sasa venye unakaa haujaanza kupata ile kuwa rafu ya mwanaume. Unajua kuna ile kishepu ya mwanaume akiendelea kukua mwanaume anakaa kisura baya baya. Hakuna kitu ya kuadmire. Lakini saa hii unajua mko ile ka stage yenye bado hamuja transit, so unakutana na kimutu kinakwambia mazee nitakuwa nikikununulia bread. Lakini wewe tutakuwa tunalala wapi? Badala ya kulala juu kwa deka, mtakuwa tunalala wapi? And let me tell you, this is not something that started today. I joined high school in 1992. I know all of you were not born. So when I joined high school in 1992, I met people who were homosexuals by that time. I met people who would do terrible things. And so when we are mentoring you, we are telling you about things that are already happening. Lesbians. Unajua uzuri wa gay ni kitu inajulikana haraka. Lakini sasa lesbian ni kitu haijulikani haraka. Kwa sababu wasichana hakuna mtu atafikiria kuna kitu wanafanya. Lakini kuna watu ambao they have been hooked to lesbianism. Wao wanasema, in our lives we don't need anybody who is called a man. But we must remember what God said the first day when he created a man and a woman. He did not create a man and a man or a woman and a woman. He created both sexes for the purpose later in life that God intended the world to be fulfilled. So boundaries are very important. Ukipata mtu ameanza kukuintroduce kitu yenye haukuwa unajua, mwambie hapana, nipatie time nikalisearch. Ukiresearch usikie hiyo kitu si mzuri, avoid that person. We normally say this: pick a friend with a toothpick, not with a fork. Unajua fork ni gani? Fork inachukuaga chipo zote mara moja, inachota 5 ama 10. Lakini toothpick lazima ichote moja mo. Katika maisha yetu lazima tuanze kuchagua watu na toothpick. Sawa sawa? That is how we set boundaries. So why are boundaries important? Let me go very, very fast. Why are boundaries important? One, boundaries are important because they help us to say no. Boundaries ukiwa nazo unaweza kusema hapana. Boundaries draw a clear line. Aya, mlikuwa mmemaliza kuandika? Mimi naenda haraka, naona time inaenda ikiisha. Boundaries help us to say no. One of the reasons why you are never able to say no is because you don't have boundaries. Unakutana na mtu na boundaries, hata nimesema wakati mwingine hata si mambo mabaya. Umekutana na beste yako, wewe ulikuwa umeambiwa uoshe nyumba, uoshe vyombo, alafu your friend visits you. Anakuambia mazisi unipeleke side hii, mnaanza kutembea. Mnaongea story. Ilikuwa saa ngapi? 3. Sasa ni saa 6, saa 7, saa 8. Your mother comes at 4:30. Haujaanza kufanya ile ka? You are not able to say no. Kwa sababu ulistahili kumweleza, hapana, niko busy, I'm committed. Wewe hauonagi simu ikipigwa na kuna ingine inaingia inasemaga line busy? Zenu zinasemaga hivyo? It is important for you to clarify and tell people that you are busy. You are not idle. Na mimi wacha nikwambie, those people who have a lot of wealth in their lives, they know how to say no. Hiyo ndio tofauti ya nyuki na inzi. Kwa sababu, ndio sababu uonagi misemo inasemwa fuata inzi, kuna kitu unaweza tarajia kwa inzi. They have nothing to offer. Lakini ukifuata nyuki utakuwa tajiri, kwa sababu kutakuwa na nini? Asali. Na unajua tofauti ya inzi na nyuki? Labda rangi peke yake. Yaani nyuki ni brown kidogo, lakini mabawa ni ile, miguu ni ile, kuruka ni ile. Si sawa sawa? Lakini akili ya nyuki inamuongoza kufanya mambo yenye inaweza kuleta kitu. Akili ya inzi inampelekaga choo. Hiyo ndio tofauti. Attitude ndio tofauti. Sasa mimi sitaki uiseme vizuri, lakini labda ni vizuri hiyo swali ujiulize ama uulize mwingine. Wewe ni nyuki ama wewe ni igi? Kwa sababu hiyo ndio inaleta tofauti katika maisha. When you set boundary, you are able to say no. Boundaries draw a clear line around what is okay for us and what is not okay. Boundaries draw a clear line around what is okay for us and what is not. Kwa hivyo inachora hiki kinastahili na hiki hakistahili. Watu wenye wanajua boundary, hata watu wakubwa kama sisi, hata wakienda mahali kuna kutuseme kuko na party na wanajua vizuri kuna chakula hawakuragi, they are able to say clearly ya kwamba hii chakula kama hii kachumbari iko na pilipili mimi sikula. Lakini watu wenye hawana boundaries, unaenda tu unachotewa, alafu unaenda unatupa. Sasa si umepeleka watu hasara? Boundaries inakusaidia ujue ni nini mzuri na ni nini baya. Boundary nyingine nitakupea boundary 5 peke yake. Ya kwamba they separate your needs, thoughts, feelings and desires from others. They separate your needs, your thoughts, your feelings and desires from others. Because what you feel is not necessarily what that other person is feeling. So ukiwa na boundary, akikwambia I'm feeling aire, unamweleza but I'm not aire myself. I mean, hatuko level moja, wewe uko juu mimi niko chini na hatuwezi elewana. So another thing is that boundaries empower you to make healthy choices. Boundaries empower you to make healthy choices. And the last one, I had many, but I will just say the last one. They protect you from physical and emotional space from intrusion. They protect physical and emotional space from intrusion. Unajua kuna space ambayo tunaitaga physical space. Kama sasa hii tumeandikiwa 1 meter, 1.5 meters apart. Sio ni social distance. If you don't have a boundary, nirudie. They protect physical and emotional space from intrusion. To be intruded. Intrusion ni kuingiliwa. Sijui kama umewahi patana na watu kama mimi, personalities, watu, na si wabaya tu, mkiongea wanaendelea wakisogea karibu na wewe. Si umewapata? Alafu what happens after that is that wanapoendelea kukaribia kwa sababu unaona space yako iko intruded, na wewe unconsciously unaanza kurudi. Ama watu wanakupeaga story wakikugoga. Tukaenda maili saba. Alafu anakushika. Sasa wewe unaanza kusikia hapana, ngoja niondoke nini? I'm being intruded. And naturally human beings are created in a way ya kwamba wanaweka kitu kinaitagwa physical space. The more a person is closer to you, the less the space becomes. Kwa hivyo mtu akiwa tuseme mko good friends ama ni mzazi ama wale kama sisi tumeoa ni spouse, space inaendelea ikiwa kidogo. Lakini watu ambao ni strangers, space inakuaga kubwa, hata inaweza kuwa 5 meters. Mnaongea na mtu akiwa kule. But the more you get closer, gap inaenda ikiisha. The reason why I'm saying that you must make boundaries ni kwa sababu kuna mahali unastahili kuweka hapa. Useme hapa usipite. Katika mambo yetu ya maisha, kuna mambo unaeleza watu. Yes, you are my friend, but I cannot do this. Wewe ni rafiki yangu lakini hapa umepita line ile ambayo nimeichora. It may not be physical, lakini lazima uiweke. Again, I said these notes are not made in a good way. But I want to read a quote by one person called Warren Buffett. You may write it or you may not write it. Warren Buffett. Warren is W-A-R-R-E-N. Buffett is B-U-F-F-E-T. He says this. Warren Buffett, it's just a quote by someone called Warren Buffett. He says this. You are lost. Oh, sparing. Buffett ni B-U-F-F-E-T. Sinajua pronunciation haifanani. So, he says this. You could write the quote if you may. The difference between successful people and really successful people, they are successful people and really successful people, is that, tumefika hapo? The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people, yes. Let me repeat. The difference between successful people and really successful people. Yeah, really. A-R-E-A-L-L-Y. Really successful people.
You want to say it in town, really?
No problem, as long as you are getting it. Sawa. Unajua tunaweza kaa hapo siku ishe tu na tumepata kile tunasema. Is that really successful people say no to almost anything, everything. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that the really successful people say no to almost everything. Hiyo ni quote ya Warren Buffett. Sema kuna watu successful na kuna wale really successful. So hawa really successful mambo mingi huwa wanaisema no ndio waweze kuiweka katika hali ya kipimo. They are able to measure. Waseme hii kitu, is it beneficial to me? Is it not beneficial to me? The end of boundaries, I will speak about something else. We are really getting to almost the climax. The other challenge that we shall get is called approval. So the first one was setting of boundaries. The next one is approval. Na mimi nashangaa kuna watu hakuna kitu wameandika kutoka wakati tulianza. Except for him, everybody else mwenye anasikia anastahili kuwa anaandika notes. Unajua tutafanya mtihani baada ya hii. Tutafanya mtihani baada ya hii kuhakikisha watu walisikia kile tulikuwa tunasoma. So, nimeona watu wameanza kuwa serious. Sasa kuna marks watapoteza zile za bereni. But for now they are better off. So, approval. And the other thing, the other challenge we shall get when we get there is called approval. In fact, I call it approval addiction. Approval addiction. So what is approval? Approval is acceptance. It is agreement. It is consent. It is support, confirmation, acknowledgement. Hiyo yote ujue itakuja, na hapale mwanzo usome instruction vizuri. Answer all questions. So are we there? So approval is to seek acceptance, is to agree with others, is to consent, is to confirm, is to have acknowledgement of something. Sasa mumeandika? Ai? Na unajua mkienda nini sasa itakuwa dictation, kusomewa. Sasa msipo jitrain haraka haraka mtakuwa mnaacha magaps mingi. In 2 Timothy chapter 2 verses 15, the Bible says, there is an issue? Yes. Okay. Approval is acceptance, agreement, support, confirmation, acknowledgement. Sasa tuko sawa? In the book of 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verses 15, the Bible says, Paul speaks to Timothy and tells him, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved. In the book of 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verses 15, the Bible says this Paul is telling his mentee, who is called Timothy, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved. Thank you for those who are confirming. Hiyo hata ndio sawa. Naona wasomi hapa. So, you know there are people who are always seeking human approval. There are people who seek human approval and others seeks God approval. Is it saying the same? 2 Timothy chapter 2 verses 15. Inasema aje wale wamefika hapo? Si usome na nguvu tukusikie. Mike kuna ingine. Asi.
Timothy.
Aya, mnajua time inaendelea tu kweli.
Do your best to win approval in God's sight as a worker who is not ashamed of his work.
Amen. Fikisha hapo. Do your best to present yourself as a worker approved of God, accepted by God. So, I want you to write this question because you shall answer it later. Who are you trying to impress? I want you to ask yourself that question. Who are you trying to impress? You trying to impress. I think in a better way, you should even ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? Now, there is a fellow or a lady who is called Judy Garrard. Writes this, I quote her, always be a first-rate version of yourself. A first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else. Always be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else. In other words, do not be a photocopy. Be original. Always be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else. Do not be a photocopy. Let's see the symptoms of persons who are looking for approval or symptoms of approval addiction. One. Symptoms. One. Working hard to try and please everyone. People who are looking for approval, they work very hard to please everyone. But remember we said when we were talking about boundaries, that the most very successful people almost say no to everything. People seeking approval will always do everything to please everyone. They are called men pleasers. So everything they do, the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they move, whatever they eat, whatever they do, they accept, they want to gain approval from the others. When you go to high school, that is one of the things that will happen. You most likely will want to get approved. Uingie kwa ile class ambayo iko na watu wengi. Na simaanishi class ya masomo, ni ile class yenye watu wana agree mambo mingi, na sana sana the Bible says there is a way that seems right for a man, but the end of it is destruction. Many times when you see people approving you, you must ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? The next symptom of approval addiction is that these people get too scared of what others will say. They get too scared. What are people going to say? Wakiniona mimi peke yangu ndiye virgin, watasema namna gani? Kwa sababu hata watauliza maswali. Hii class kuna virgin. Unajipata wewe peke yako ndiye, unasema hata mimi si yeye. You become so scared that when questions are raised on your integrity, yani wewe haujawahi lala jela, unasikia kama kila mtu anasema kulala jela is like you have become a hero. You know, I have worked with the prison ministries for the last 11 years, and I can tell you, being in prison is not cool. Najua watu wanakuja hapa wanakwambia kama wewe ni mwanaume lazima ukuwe umelala cell. Kwani cell ni lodging? Let me tell you the truth. It is not cool to be there. Lakini unapatana na watu wanakwambia, "Hai, wewe ni mwanaume aina gani?" Let me tell you, you don't become a man by the standards of people. You can become a man by putting proper boundaries in your life. So you must get into the right company. You see, people who have a problem with approval, they are too scared of what others will say about them. They keep on checking and seeking to know how many people like them. They keep on checking and seeking to know how many people like them. Yani wao, they are not confident about themselves. Hata wakivalia nguo lazima waulize wengine, "Mazini nakaa aje? Unaniona aje?" Badala ya wajiulize, "Ninajiona aje?" Let me tell you, for example, I'm the most handsome guy in this room. There is no dispute about that. Ndio sababu nilitoa mask, munione vizuri. There is no dispute about that. I believe it myself. Kwani lazima watu wanieleze? Ai? Lakini kuko wao wako hapa, they rely so much on what people say about them that they don't believe they are beautiful. They do all manner of things to try to make them beautiful to impress others. At the end of the day, they become so ugly that we can even notice it. Because they are not original, they are photocopies. Fake, bonoko. Check whether your neighbor is a bonoko. Kuangalia tu na usimweleze kitu. They feel unsure about themselves. That's another symptom. That they feel unsure about themselves. They feel unsure about themselves. So ukiona wewe unaona you are not sure about yourself, you have a problem with your approval addiction. They have a hard time saying no. By the time waseme hapana, hapo umefika boundary yangu imefika hapo. By the time waseme hapana, wametembea, wametembea sasa karibu kufika mwisho, ndio wanasema unajua mimi naendaka Sunday school. Unajua mimi sasa hiyo wamefikishwa kona, ndio wanasema unajua mimi naendaka kate kisimata, nilianza kukula meza ya Bwana, lakini maneno ishai. They have a hard time saying no because they are seeking approval. Let me tell you, if you want to become a real man or a real woman, you must learn to say no from the beginning. Let me tell you what I do. Because you know I'm still a human being. I meet with human beautiful ladies and they are coming to seek my services. Of course, I notice them. But one of the things that I do is that I give them a testimony the first thing. Oh, I'm born again. Ninajua hapo nimechoma picha live. Kama umemwambia umeokoka saa hiyo tu, basi conversation yenu, hiyo picha imechomwa live. Hakuna kitu kingine inaweza kuendelea. Kama jana, let me give you an example. There was a lady who had come in my office, anataka kusaidiwa kupata kazi. And by the way, she's a beautiful lady. Amekuja. Alafu nimemwambia lunch time tunakuaga na Bible study. Si nimechoma picha straight. Hakuna story nyingine unaweza ongea. Mimi hivyo ndivyo huwa nafanya so that I am not able to move to the next step. Sawa sawa? Kini unapata mtu amepitia catechism, amesoma kila kitu, hata meza ya Bwana anakula, amewekelewa mikono. Alafu yeye anapelekwa, anatembea. Akifika kona ndio anasema unajua hata next Sunday is Lord's table. Waambie zamani wakujue. Who am I? Na ndio sababu nilikuuliza, who are you trying to impress? They fear being rejected. People who are seeking approval, they fear being rejected. They think that other people are better than them. Wanafikiria watu wengine ni wazuri kuali. Unamwambia kuja leo utuongoze. Nasema hapana. Si joki yako. Mimi nikianza kuibisha inakuwa lullaby. They think that other people are better than them. But I want to tell you that you should be original. What you are. Don't try to copy others. Hata usistruggle na pronunciation. Ndio sababu unaniona mimi niko natural. Ni hata mkicheka nasema tu kile ambacho ninaweza kusema kwa ulimi wangu. Hara. Lakini wewe ukitafuta approval from people, hautawahi somesha hiyo masomo nimesomesha. Hata kama nimeharibu pronunciation, uzuri umeshika. I remember one guy, we were with him in Kiambu a couple of years back. Na walikuwa ni kule ambao watu wanaoba wakiwa wanaoba si kwa roho, ni loudly. So this fellow ameomba na Kiingereza, ameomba. Seated next to him is a beautiful lady ambaye pia alikuwa amekuja church. So tumemaliza church, tumetoka huko nje. Kama vile tutamaliza hapa tutoke nje, watu wameanza kuongea. Inaitwa feedback. So akamuita kado. Akamwambia, my brother, you really prayed. Uliomba. Sasa si unajua ile kitu mtu anasikiaga, kumbe watu wali notice niliomba. Lakini maneno yaliyofuata ndio haya. Lakini akamweleza, shida ni you played in a very broken English next time. Oba na ile lugha umezoea. Then this guy. Lakini Mungu akamsaidia. Akamwambia the good thing is that God hears even that broken. Sawa. Wewe utashinda hapa bila maombi kwa sababu haujui Kiingereza. Neke. So these people who have approval addiction think that other people are better than them. They measure success on what other people are thinking about them. They measure success on what other people think about them. Their free time is filled up fulfilling the needs of other people. Their free time is filled up fulfilling the need of other people. Na ndio sababu nimesema hivi. You know, wakati Nokia ilikuja katika hii dunia, Nokia ile phone, ilikuwa inaandikwa Nokia connecting people. Na kuna msemo mwingine inakuaga kwa station moja, sijui ni Inoro, inaitwa musie wotu genake. Sasa wewe ukiwa msichana unakuwa musie wotu ginota connecting people. So kila mtu akikuja anasema, unapatana na mtu anakwambia haki mimi si jarara, si kuragi, hata saa hii si jakura, nikikuona naanza kutetemeka na kuwa asthmatic. Mwambia enda uone daktari, because I'm not able to help you get out of asthmatic, kwa sababu mimi si daktari. Ama mnaonaje? Lakini kwa sababu kuna watu wanatumia muda wao mwingi sana so that they want to be approved, fulfilling the needs of other people. That is what will happen to you if you have approval addiction. And the last one is that you depend on other people's approval for your self-worth. You depend on others to say whether you have self-worth. Sasa, mimi vitu vingine naona kama nitaachana nayo. Lakini let me teach you just a few skills tufanye group work tumalize. So how are we going to overcome this? You know, this one is a whole lesson by itself. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema hii sitafundisha. This is a whole lesson by itself. Self-awareness. Kisema nifundishe, hatutapata nafasi ya kuimaliza. Lakini si unicholee hiyo window venye tu imekaa, niipitie tu haraka. Si muichore tu venye imekaa, alafu nitapitia tu. Muichore tu venye imekaa, nitapitia tu. Ama waichore baadaye.
Unachora na kalamu si mdomo.
Ara? Wameichora? Na si wangechora tu baadaye hii kitu ilitolewa. Okay. No, let's agree kwa sababu hakuna time.
Sisi tunaona kale.
Evangelist. Nilikuwa nasema ama hii kitu I explain it in 2 minutes. Itolewe photocopy wabaki nayo. Kwa sababu before the time wamalize kuchora, dakika 10-15 zitakuwa zimeisha. Onemare ikirie. Self-awareness ni kujijua wewe mwenyewe. Vile utakaa wewe mwenyewe na vile utakaa na wengine. Hiyo ndio inaitwa self-awareness. Na hii dirisha iko na dirisha 4. Dirisha ya kwanza inaitwa open window. Ni dirisha imefunguliwa. So the open window ina contain yale mambo watu wanajua kukuhusu na ile mambo wewe unayajua. Like wanajua maybe you are brown, you are which color you are, how wanaweza kuestimate uko na miaka mingapi, mambo kama hayo ambayo inaonekana in the public domain. Ninasema if I get another chance ever, I will teach about self-awareness in a deeper way. The other window is called the hidden window, ambayo iko na mambo ambayo wewe unajua lakini wengine hawajui. For example, labda uko na kidoda mahali, watu hawaioni, umeikava lakini watu wengine hawajui lakini wewe unajua. Kuna mambo zingine unafanyaga, wewe unajua wengine hawajui. Kwa bedroom yako kuna vitu uko nazo umeficha, wengine hawaijui lakini wewe Ndio hiyo inaitwa hidden widow. Iko na mambo unajua lakini wengine hawajui. Hiyo ingine inaitwa bride widow. Hiyo widow iko na mambo ambayo wewe huyajui lakini wengine wanajua. And you can only know ni nini iko hapo kama watakueleza. Kama watakueleza, wakwambie unajua vile unatuchokeshaga. For example, unajua vile unaendelea kuongea, bate mara mingi inakuwa kila upande. Si unaona hivyo? Ama wakati mwingine kuna vitu zinatokea kwa macho. Wewe haujui lakini wengine wanajua. Sasa wewe unaendelea kuwakaribia ukiwapea story. Self awareness. Na wao wanaendelea kutapika. Unless wakwambie hauwezi juu. Ndio sababu inaitwa bride. Na as a leader, as a student in our lives, kuna mambo ambayo sisi hatujui lakini wengine wanajua. And the last one is called the unknown widow. If I had time, hiyo ndio ninge express vizuri kwa sababu ni yale mambo yamewahi kufanyika katika maisha yetu. Yale magumu sana. Wakati mwingine we were rejected. Wakati mwingine tulipata abuse. Wengine ni rape. Wengine ni kukua molested. Mambo haya later in life yanatengeneza behavior katika maisha yetu. And Sigmund Freud anasema they reflect baadaye. Ndio unapata watu wengine ile behavior wako nayo waliipata kwa sababu ya mambo walioyapitia. It's about the unknown widow. We don't have much time, so I didn't speak much about it. So how can you open the window? One of it is called feedback. Watu wakueleze. Wakwambie, na wakati unaongea, unatoaga mate mingi, so ndio unajua venye utafanya. Unapeanaga story mingi, ukiongea unagogaga watu na vile tunakasirikaga. Ama umewahi kuwa kwa mat, mtu amekupea story na hamjuani, umechoka. Lakini badala ya umwambie, ama mzazi wako anaenda akikuintroduce kila mahali, kaka ni kama u nikaguka kaka umete kwa mbele na umepoeka na haumwambiagi. We must learn to give people feedback. Sawa aya, kumbe wanawaelezaga hivyo. Hata nyinyi mtakuwa wazazi mjue kwa nini tunaelezaga. The other thing is called therapy. And we have counselors who can help you to remove what is in the unconscious mind to the conscious mind. Ndio hiyo dirisha iweze kufunguka. So let's say for example, you are suffering from that vocabulary called masturbation. Na hakuna mtu unaweza kueleza. Mazi wewe unajaribu kila wakati, you cannot stop ile vocabulary inakuja. But you can see a therapist ambaye anaweza kukusaidia. Na therapist wako na training. They have code of conduct. Hawawezi kwenda wakiambia watu, unamwona hata vile anaibishaga kwa youth. Ni masturbator. Unasikiliza wimbo gani? Pale hakuna mtu akitoka hapa anaenda. The last one is called disclosure. Disclosure, wakati mwingine ukijipata katika hali ile, unaambia wengine. Na tumemaliza self awareness kwa sababu time hakukuwa nayo. The last item that we shall run today. There is a problem. Uta-clarify hiyo, utawasomesha wakati mwingine. Because really, it is almost 12:30. It is almost 12:30. So, hiyo time hatuwezi kuipata. Self awareness itahitaji a whole lesson on its own. The last item on the list ndio tufanye workshop, although jana nilielewa jina workshop kulingana na the wife of Patrick Jiro inamaanisha kitu tofauti. Ati kwao they are a workshop. That is Peter, he is called who? Jiro huyu alikuwa nani wa Safari Rally. What is his name? Okay, vile tu anaitwa Jiro. Ati mke wake Patrick Jiro. Ati mke wake ilikuwa kwa gazeti ya jana. Alimpatia wakati walikuwa 45 years in marriage, akampatia kakadi imeandikwa we and you are a workshop. That is Patrick Jiro works and I shop. That is a workshop. So yeye anafanya kazi na mimi ninanunua ni sawa, lakini sasa workshop ile tunaongea ni tofauti. Ati explain. Si workshop iko na majina mawili. Work na shop. Work na shop. Ndio. So anasema my husband works na mimi nina shop. Na ni sawa tu. So let's go to the last thing for today. It is called self-concept. Self-concept is self-identity. It influences self-concept is self-identity. It influences how we think, how we feel, and how we act in our everyday life. So self-concept inatusaidia. It influences how we think, how we feel, how we act in everyday life. So self-concept ndio ilikusaidia uvalie vile ulivalia. Ndio ilikusaidia ukae vile umekaa kwa wakati huu. Ndio inaitwa self-concept. Na nitaongea tu mambo matatu ya self-concept alafu tufanye workshop. Ya kwanza inaitwa body image. This is about accepting yourself just the way you are. Body image is accepting yourself just the way you are. Na unajua teenagers, adolescents wako na shida na their image. Because wao wanataka kuimitate others, they don't want to become themselves. So when we talk about self-concept, we are saying it is about our body image. And I want to say this, that when we talk about our body image, it includes our body hygiene. So mtu ambaye hajajikubali haogi. Mtu ambaye self concept yake si mzuri haogagi. Anatumia madawa ya kulevya kwa sababu hajapenda mwili ya. Mtu ambaye hana good body image, environment yake inakaa baya. Ukienda bedroom yake utapata vitu ya aina yote. Utapata toothpick iko ndani ya kiatu. Kiatu iko ndani ya box. Socks iko kwa toothbrush. Kila kitu ni disorganized. Mtu ambaye image yake haikai vizuri. Mtu ambaye self concept yake ni mzuri ana take time kutengeneza mwili wake. He or she eats the right kind of food. Is mera food? Let me ask that question. Mera ni food? Ni ashakura. Ni mashakura. Oh, sawa. Ndio nilikuwa nataka kuclarify. Sababu mimi napatanga kuna watu wanakaa tu wakidigest. Yaani wanakaa the whole day. Wamevipa pande hii, mara pande hii ingine. People who have a good self-concept, do not abuse drugs, they cannot commit suicide because they have a good image about themselves. Nasema hapana, mwili yangu haiwezi kaa hivyo. People with a good image, they respect their bodies. Wao si avocado. Kwani avocado ni kumaanisha aje? Then the next thing about self-concept is called self-image. These are statements I make about myself. Self-image are statements I make about myself. That is appreciating myself, giving myself value. Sasa, hebu andika hapo, ujiulize swali. What is my value? Kwa sababu hapa kuna watu wako value yao ni 5%, wengine 10, wengine 20, wengine 30, kwa sababu value inalingana na yale mambo ambayo unafanya wewe mwenyewe. Kuna watu wamepotea. Unajua ni vile naenda haraka. Self-image are statements I make about myself. Yale maneno ambayo ninaongea kuhusiana na mimi. For example, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I mean it from my heart and my life. I don't care what others say, but I'm fearfully and wonderfully. I'm a victor. It doesn't mean whether I'm getting 10% in class or what. I'm still a victor. I make those statements. I appreciate myself. Now, when I was in Form 2, I dropped physics when I was in Form 2. And this is the reason. Sasa, tukaletewa mtihani. I got 15%. Sasa, angalia mnanichekelea na wengine wanapata less than that. To me, I'm just honest. I got 15%. Lakini hata hiyo sio yenye ilikuwa shida. I had copied. Sasa shida kama umepata 15% na umekopi. Nilikopi nini? And that is how most of us are. They are only 15%. 85% is copied from others. Yani wao, they don't believe in themselves. Ni ile appreciation tulikuwa tunasema. They don't appreciate themselves. Wanataka kukaa kama wengine. Wengine wakienda bila guo na wao wanataka kuenda bila guo kwa sababu waliona mtu celebrity anakaa bila. In our times kuna style ilikuwa inaitwa bouncing style. Watu walikuwa wanatembea wakibounce. Sasa baadaye tukagundua yule mtu alianza bouncing, mguu yake ilikuwa mfupi kuliko hii nyingine. Alafu kila mtu anaenda Neke. So we are saying that you must be yourself. Speak things that are good. Speak things that confirm who you are. And finally, the ideal self. Ideal self. Hata hiyo nimeipitia. Hata self-concept is a lesson on its own. So nimeipitia tu. Ideal self is what I would like to become. Ninataka kuwa nini katika maisha? Even right now, there are people who don't know what they want to become in life. They don't know. I was giving a motivation talk to college students a couple of weeks ago, and I'm asking them, what do you want to become? And it was only one lady who said that in future I want to become a good mother. How wengine watu walikuwa wanataka kusema aeronautical engineer, neurologist, sijui nini, lakini wakasahau siku moja watataka kuwa wazazi. And this lady was saying, I want to become a good mother. I want to become a good father. Mwenye atakuwa anaingia kwa nyumba ile masaa inastahili. Unajua kuna father wanaigiaga, yani kuna father wenye corona ndio imewasaidia waonekane kwao. Kwa sababu kuingia na kutoka hawaonekanagi mpaka watoto wanaulizaga mama yao. dadi anakuaga nani? Juu hawajamuona na wanaishi the same room. So the ideal self is what you want to become later in life. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to rise up on our feet. You know me, I'm a good time manager. Mimi niliambiwa nimalize saa 7 na imebaki 30 minutes. By the time tumalize workshop, hiyo time itakuwa imeisha. So ngoja niwaonyeshe appetizer. Hatutaifanya hivyo. Appetizer. Sasa tutafanya hivi. Tuguse chini alafu baadaye ingine tuguse. Without begging your needs. Sawa, tuko pamoja, tuanze. Appetizer. Haya. Tuanze. Enda badi. Mpaka uguse hiyo. Haya, sasa tuingie kwa group work. And I want us to use this criteria very fast. Tukiwa hivyo tu tumesimama, watu watasema number 1 to 6. Ikifika 6 inaanza tena 1 to 6. So let's start from here. Huyu amesema ngoja hii itachanganyikana. Ingeanza hivi. Tuanze hivi. Alafu hivi.
Hesabu yako naona.
1 to 6.
Sasa hapo.
Time. Are we set? So this is what I want us to do. Kama umemenshoniwa ukiwa number 1, wote waende ile kona. Number 1 wote waende ile kona. Number 1 wote